Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chess World Cup 2023, a knockout tournament with some of the best players in the world, including Magnus, Hikaru, Fabiano Caruana, Jan Nepomniachtchi, you name it, they are all playing there. This is the only tournament that Magnus Carlsen has never won, and in today's video, we are covering the end of the round of 64, a spectacular sacrifice of the Roooook by Magnus. We had a record broken, which we will also cover in today's video. Massive, massive upsets, and Hikaru struggling in the early rounds of the event. By the way, I got in my front door 10 minutes ago. It's 10 o'clock at night in New York. I had a 9-hour flight, and I'm right here making the recap. So, you know how you should show your appreciation? There are now a limited number of signed copies of my book. Signed copies. There is a limited amount of them. You can pre-order one. They ship from Strand Bookstore here in New York City. If you live abroad and the shipping is too much money, that's okay. You don't have to buy it. Don't feel any pressure. But if you're American and the shipping doesn't cost a lot, you can get a signed copy of the book. And my friends, why am I so pale? Oh my God. Is that really what I look like? Hold on. Oh my, that is just awful. Okay, my friends, we are going to kick things off with the game of Magnus Carlsen. Magnus has a 1-0 lead. Friendly reminder, the World Cup is 2 games that they play in classical chess against each other. I haven't slept in 23 hours, by the way. I don't really sleep well on planes, so if I say anything delusional in this video, for legal reasons, you are not allowed to do anything about it. So anyway, Magnus won the first game of 2. They play 2 classical chess games with the scores tied 1-1. Then they play rapid playoff. Magnus begins with pawn to c4. This is known as the English opening. We have a Norwegian playing a Georgian in Azerbaijan, and it's in English. c5. Levan Pansolaya plays a symmetrical, knight of 3 g6. Magnus plays a very, very quick d4. This is one of the ways to play. Of course, in the symmetrical English, you could play knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop c7. But one of the fastest ways to break the symmetry is to just play the move d4 as fast as possible, because black can't really play d5. Now here, Levan plays something really weird. He plays bishop g7, which is a weird move, because, I mean, you just don't do anything about this pawn, and you allow your opponent to play the move d5, basically. It is far more natural and common to go here, at which point Magnus would have gone here, and then knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, e4 would have been played, and probably something... We would have went to an accelerated dragon, and Magnus would have went for some Maroczy bind or something like that. But the way this is played, Magnus just goes d5. And then he just takes the entire center. Now, black's setup is relying on white to play knight c3. At which point, he can play what is called the beef eater or the pterodactyl defense with something like f5. I don't know if that's what Levan wanted, and I don't have Levan's Instagram or his phone number, so I cannot ask him. But Magnus didn't do that, and he waited for his opponent to develop this knight, and you'll notice his opponent plays e6 and then knight e7. And then Magnus plays knight c3, and the difference is that if you do it this way, you don't actually get f5, and this is just Swiss cheese. You don't want to trade off a dark squared bishop when you've put so many pawns on light squares. In the other version, you were okay doing it because you still got your knight to an active square, you still fought for the center, but this is just all bad. So Levan now plays h6. And Magnus takes on e6 and attacks the pawn on d6. And his opponent doesn't actually have a way of defending it. His opponent just gives it away. And that's normal. In fact, you will notice that Magnus is down quite a bit on, like he doesn't know the best way forward here. He's debating to just developing and doing this, but I'm sure Magnus didn't really want to get to a position where it was kind of like a King's Indian style attack brewing. So he took on e6, he went bishop f4, and he won a pawn, and then he just came back. And his opponent seemed to be doing very well. His opponent had a very, very confident position, trying to make a comeback. You know, everything you got to do to try to beat Magnus, throw him off his game. And knight b4. Knight b4 is a wild move. I can think of more natural moves here, like rook to d8. The reason he did not play rook d8 is because of knight d5, which would have invited a queen trade. And the pawn on b2 is not hanging because rook b1, rook b7. So white would have just traded queens and created a very powerful square here. And I think Levan got a little bit spooked, which is why he spent 14 minutes to play this move. There is a saying by strong grandmaster Vladimir Kramnik that basically said, if you got to spend 15 minutes on a move, it's probably not going to be good. And the computer was not very happy with this move because just after the very simple a3, if black wastes any time going backwards, this is still going to happen. So he starts to fire with g5, right? This is hanging, but he counterattacks the bishop. Bishop h. Wow, I feel drunk. I am so tired. Like, I want to fall asleep. Can I fall asleep in the middle of a recording? Anyway, as you can see, Levon is just galloping into Magnus's position with knight to d3 check. Magnus very quickly takes, and actually, instead of trying to hang on to his pawn, he just plays castles. Now, c4 is hanging. Also, c3 is kind of hanging. It's not really hanging, because if you try to win the pawn, you get hit with this, and you lose a full rook. But black would have this move, so he would give up the rook for the knight. But in the game, black did this. And so after the opening stage, actually, Levon had a totally reasonable position. He was doing very well. Magnus played knight d5. Crisscross applesauce. It's a fiery position. The bishop can take, the knight can take, all of this can take. The bishop's got this open. Now, bishop takes, pawn takes, and rook takes d5. And for a brief moment, Magnus is just straight up down a pawn. The world champ. Well, not anymore, but, you know, in our hearts. How do you prevent black from castling here? What do you do? Because if you do nothing, black's gonna castle. Well, you gotta target the knight, right? And then you have to target a piece which is defended by the knight and the queen. So if black were to castle here, black would still lose material. Now, Levon here really doesn't like this, so he steps out of the attack with the king. Magnus brings his knight forward and then brings his rook forward, and Levon now plays knight d4. The position is actually still balanced. Magnus goes king h1, so neither of these moves is ever a check. Levon plays b5, hitting his queen. Magnus goes here. Now, h5 once again is the best move from Levon, and he's untangling. He's just a moment away. Like, he's going to move his queen. He might bring his rook into the party. He's got g4 to create an attack. He's actually fighting Magnus toe-to-toe. Queen b6 is once again the best move. Now Magnus plays knight e7, attacking the rook, getting close to the king. Once again, the best move is played. 26 moves of perfect chess. But that's not enough. In this position, the best move was bishop f6 or pushing one of these pawns. Instead, Levon goes here, pinning the knight to the queen. Magnus plays bishop c7, and the rook is actually lost. Because if you try to keep the rook on the back rank, I play bishop d6 check and knight to e7. But here's the problem. The only other way to protect bishop d6 check is to go here. And as you can see, from the M in the evaluation, in this position, Magnus Carlsen sacrificed the rook, even on 23 hours of no sleep. Rook to e8 check. His opponent resigned. He resigned because Magnus's next move. This is called an attraction sacrifice. You attract the king like a magnet. Queen e4 check, threatening the king. If the king simply retreats to the square that it was on, queen a8, rook d8, queen d8 mate. A ridiculous geometric checkmate. However, rook e8 check, king e8, queen here. What happens if somebody blocks? Namely, what happens if the knight blocks? I have news for you. It doesn't matter, because it looks like the attack has been stopped. But I sacrificed the queen. Rook takes d8. Rook takes d8. And it's mate anyway. Rook e8 check is a ridiculous move to attract the king, zig, zag, and get to the king as well. And Magnus Carlsen is into the round of 32. And if he is playing like this in this tournament, these bozos better watch out, because they all gonna get it. They all gonna get it. It's gonna be a fatality with the M train. Good train, by the way. Runs between Middle Village Metropolitan Avenue and Forest Hill 71st Street. Yeah, bet you didn't know that. New York. Meanwhile, Hikaru has had a very different start to the event. He's the second seed, and he's currently the second highest rated player in the world. It's very close with Fabiano. First game that Hikaru played against Karthik Venkataraman. By the way, can I give some props to chess.com? I yelled at the staff in the first video recap, and they gave him a profile photo. There we go. he is the Indian champion, despite being something like the 15th or 20th highest rated player. Like, he won the national championship of India, and he's a rapidly rising player. Hikaru plays a Queen's Indian defense, and they trade bishops early. Hikaru attacks the center, but white gets a very pleasant position. White brings the rooks and has an absolutely solid setup. Hikaru plays d5. A couple of knights come off, take. A couple of bishops come off. A couple of rooks come off. It's queen and knight endgame. And Magnus's recap lasted 9 minutes. The recap of Hikaru's game is going to be much shorter. In this game, his opponent did not really make any indication of trying to create significant chances. I think he was more than happy to make a second draw. Hikaru goes for a Queen's Indian. His opponent isn't able to create anything meaningful, and Hikaru has drawn 2 games against the 25-65 rated Indian Grandmaster. Now, they have to play a Rapid and Blitz playoff, which they will do tomorrow, and Hikaru is a massive favorite because he is probably the first or second best Rapid and Blitz player in the world. But we'll see. We'll see if Karthik's ability to stifle Hikaru will continue, and if not, well, it was a good effort regardless. But this was kind of a nothing burger of a game. It was sort of just me, throwing you a little airplane snack, if you will. But this is special. This game is special. This game is special. This game is special. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. And if you're going to go anywhere, click the link in the description and get a signed copy of this book. And don't ask what ELO this book is for. It's on the page of the book. Just do 10 seconds of research. It says it on the book. It's a beautiful book, by the way. You know what? I'm just going to show it to you. How about that? Hey, pay attention for like 30 seconds. Look at this book. This book has a summary page and will have QR codes at the end of each chapter. You see that? Summary page of what you learn. It's going to have QR codes. If you scan this right now, nothing actually happens because we are building that page. But every chapter is going to have QR codes for you to practice more. This is an incredible book. You got to get it. Just get it. What are we even... Anyway, unless you're like 2,000. If you're 2,000, get it for your friend. Or get a signed copy. Anyway, Tin Jingyao is the Singapore national champion. He is the rising player from Singapore. Stupid. And he's playing Shahryar Mamedyarov, Azeri chess legend. And we have A6. Now, what's funny is that I have a course on this opening, and it's called the Queen's Gambit Decline course. It's on Chessly. And obviously, Tin Jingyao has that course. Bishop G5 is one of the ways to play. And the idea of A6, by the way, is to take and play B5. And normally what white will do is they will take and basically say this move is stupid. Mamedyarov goes here, trades bishops, and plays a little bit more solidly like this. Totally fine. Knight C6. Now he takes. Develops like this. And in this position, Knight E7 is played by Tin Jingyao. He wants to play C6, B5, Bishop F5, wants to trade bishops. And in this position, for basically no reason whatsoever, Shahryar plays G4. Like, again, Shah is the kind of player that does not, like, if you're going out on a Friday, you don't even need to ask. You don't even need to ask. And if you do ask him, it will take one invitation. Okay, he's there. Okay, he does not need a second invitation to party. He's not one of these friends that plays hard to get or pretends to be an introvert and, secretly just wants people to beg for them to come. I'm introverted, but yeah, it might not seem like it because I talk a lot. But yeah, I mean, G4. He just doesn't even care. Knight E5, F4. Look at this position. I mean, right, this is... Tin Jingyao is now dealing with the onslaught, okay? He's covering up, right? We got Shah standing up, bop, throwing the uppercut, bop, bop, coming over the top, you know what I'm saying? And now he's got to... This is what happens when I don't sleep for a day, all right? I just shadow box in the middle of a recap. And then, we got Tin Jingyao, he's just backing up, he's rolling with the punches, he's looking for an opportunity to counter. And here it is, F6. There's the opportunity to counter. It has arrived. And now my man said, "You're not bullying me." He goes, G5, look at that. That's big boy chess. G5. If you take, hello. Now the best part is, taking is the best move. Best part is taking is actually the best move. And then in this position, white just has to play rook f1, lose the pawn on h3 for some reason, and play queen to c3. And do you know what the idea of queen to c3 is? A lot of you are probably analyzing this move like, oh, I know the idea. Queen c3, very obvious. Queen a5, queen c7, duh. And then like get in here. Like that's, yeah, obviously queen c3. No, that makes a lot of sense. You know what the idea of queen to c3 is? The idea of queen to c3 is to play king to c2. What? King to c2 to try to attack on the h file. That is the point. You take, you go here, and then you do this to walk your king and attack on the h file. This is some stupid stuff. And neither player sees that. Instead, Mamedyarov is like, I'm going to lose a pawn. And I'm just going to attack like this. And Tin Jingyao's like, I'm up a pawn. And Mamedyarov's like, I'm going to attack like this. And Tin Jingyao's like, I'm up a pawn. And Mamedyarov's like, yeah, but... Oh, he's up a pawn. Oh, wow. Yo, but I got the pawn back. Yeah, but now Tin Jingyao hits him with the haymaker. Pawn to d4. Oh, my goodness. The rook is hanging. The rook is infiltrating. Something is going to hit the king. The knight could get in whenever it wants. h3 is going to hang. Then g4 is going to hang. Black is not getting mated. Rook to c8 hits the bishop. The bishop has to move. The bishop blocks the rook. The knight takes the pawn falls. That means the g4 is going to fall. That means the knight f2 is on the way. That means that the king is still under attack. Bishop takes a6. Bishop c6 check. The knight blocks the king, rook takes g4, the pawns have fallen. Oh my god, Tin Jingyao might be winning, and he's also sacrificing this rook because he's going to take here, king h2, queen goes back to c8, and in all of the tactical complications, Shahryar Mamedyarov, knight f4 check, king g1, queen c1, knight f4 check, and Shahryar Mamedyarov resigns the game, and Tin Jingyao, the superstar player of Singapore, has just knocked out a 27-42 rated player. Now let me tell you something about the career of Tin Jingyao that I bet you didn't know. A couple of weeks ago, I played against Tin Jingyao in Blitz on chess.com, and he beat me 2 games out of 3. That is really impressive. But this is even more impressive than that. Officially now on the career accomplishments of Tin Jingyao is defeating Shahryar Mamedyarov in the World Cup and then beating me 2 out of 3 in Blitz. Because not a lot of people can do that. He should be very, very proud of himself. Shout out to Singapore. Shout out to Singapore. Chess on the map, or as they say, Singapore. Sort of. That was my attempt at a Singaporean accent. Singapore. Singapore, you got a real one. This dude is for real. We're going to be tracking how he goes. Another game. Nodirbek Abdusaturov, this was a banger game. Semi-Slav defense. And history is made in the next game. So if your attention span's like, I've watched the chess video for 17 minutes. Oh my God, no one's ever going to love me. That might be a separate issue. No, you trust me. Being a nerd is cool. This game is great. The next game is history. Knight bd7, a3, pawn trade in the center. And Nodirbek gives up his dark squared bishop to create a very powerful wall and also play knight e5, just like Mamedyarov did in his game, okay? Knight back to d7, and now the players repeated moves and made a draw. No, that didn't actually happen. Castles. Take, queen b6, and Nodirbek has given up a pawn. And Gotham is going to sip his spindrift because this was the only drink remaining in his house when he got home at 10 o'clock at night. But after I upload this video, I'm going to take a walk because New York City is one of the only cities in the world, I think, where you can walk at midnight and get like anything you want. Maybe like Tokyo? You can get like food, drink, laundry, McDonald's, that's food and drink. I like delirious recaps. F4. So Nodirbek is a pawn down, but he's looking to create an attack. He's going to have to play king h1 at some point. You can't really attack with this many pawns in front of your king and not play king h1 because you're going to get hit with checks, right? He takes en passant because he can, and he wanted to demonstrate to his opponent that he can. He also has opportunities to attack the king. Now Black's king is stuck in the center. He cannot castle. F5. F5 is opening the door for the knight. Queen d3, and a couple moves later, I told you king to h1 is played. Now Black plays king c7 and wants to start firing back in the center. Nodirbek plays knight f4 with the intention of galloping into the black position. Queen a4 attacks the pawn in the center. Rook d1 defends the pawn in the center. And now the knight goes to h5. The idea of knight h5 and no longer knight e6 is this is no longer a check. And furthermore, if I take this or this and sacrifice my knight, I will get my queen in over here. So Black now has to react very quickly. Take, rook e1. h3, just making sure. I think h3 is a little bit slow. I think Neugebrecht could have been a bit more forceful here, but this is completely fine. And his position is still looking very, very nice. But the problem, as we have seen in this video, is if you give a man a fish, he will eat. If you teach a man how to fish, he's gonna eat it for the rest of his life. I have no idea what that has to do with what I'm about to say, but basically what we've seen in this recap is that if you give your opponents a pawn and then you don't take their soul, they're still up a pawn and they're going to use it. In fact, the last game that we looked at literally changed the round when the move c5 happened. Yeah, and look at the structure, by the way. It was almost identical. So queen e7, black defends himself and plays c4, and suddenly he's just got a pass pawn. And as long as he survives the apocalypse, he is going to still have the pass pawn. And that's what he does. Rook e6. He takes. Neugebrecht has gone all in, and black just has a pass pawn. And in case I haven't made it clear, black has a pass pawn. Queen d6, rook c8. He just puts the rook behind the pawn. Now rook c3 and queen h8. That's very nice. But that's it. Now black emerges up a queen and a rook for a queen and a bishop with various checkmating possibilities, as well as all the winning endgames. Queen g5, rook a3, and it was on move 44 that Neugebrecht Abdusattorov resigned, because if he plays something like h5, rook e3, rook e1 is game over, as white has to lose the queen, and Neugebrecht Abdusattorov is knocked out of the Chess World Cup 2023. That is absolutely nuts. Wow. That is crazy. He is knocked out by Vahap Sanal of Turkey. Shout out to Turkey. Turkey on the map. Vahap Sanal is a beast. This game, I saved for last. We also have a photo now of Misradin Iskandarov. My friends, this is a massive moment in history. Something may happen that has not happened in nearly 40 years. Let's watch. Lukash with the black pieces plays the knight c6 Sicilian, and he plays the Sveshnikov Sicilian, which is a very, very, very complicated sharp line. In the Sveshnikov, black has some weaknesses on these squares, but tries to fight them with dynamic play. Knight to d5, this was the main weapon of Fabiano Caruana versus Magnus Carlsen in their World Championship match. They pioneered a ton of theoretical lines. The knight undevelops, and black castles very quickly. White oftentimes will rotate here. Black is going to try to attack. It's a very imbalanced and complicated position. Like at some point, the move f5 is going to happen. Just wait for it, I promise. First, black is going to develop some pieces. There they are. Bishop to b4. All right. Knight c5. And there it is, f5. All right. Misradin is also playing extremely quickly. So clearly, Iskandarov is very, very well prepared. Plays knight to b6, which has all been played before. Now bishop takes, rook takes, pawn to b4, and basically white is just going to rely on this pawn majority. So white is mobilizing that structure. He clearly has more space. He's clearly dominant. So the way black is going to try to fight back, he's going to play e4, and white is going to try to lock the position. Now, very tough for black to do anything if black doesn't take en passant. So if white just gets to play like queen d2 and do whatever he wants, black's bishops are never going to participate in the game. Which is why after f4, he takes like this to maintain some opening in the position. Now his bishop is a beast, right? The bishop on e5 standing in an absolutely fantastic manner. Rook e1, bishop f4, and already things have gone astray. Rook e3 was just not a good move. Instead, white could have considered something like bishop h5 or even or even this move. Although even here, apparently you can sacrifice and try to create some sort of attack with queen h4. But this is a problem because now you cannot really move because of queen h4. And there's like checkmates. I mean, it's a very unpleasant attack. So Iskandarov actually just gives up the rook completely and puts his queen on e6, but Lukash just activates all his pieces. And now there are two ways to win a winning position. Endgame or checkmate. He trades rooks. He doesn't worry about this. He trades queens. And he is just simply in a winning endgame. Now, this looks like it might not be winning because, you know, if, I don't know, somehow black finds himself in a position like this with two pawns like white, but that's not going to happen because of this. Now, bishop to e4, if you take e2, e1, because the rook is cutting off the king, bishop to g4, bishop d3, and we repeat one time. Now the king comes, king f6. Misradin can't even take the pawn, his king e5, and then he's just going to be losing. Oops, he's going to lose both pawns. He plays knight c4, bishop back to c6. And rather than even continuing this game, white just resigned. And the reason why this is so important is because with this win, Gukesh has now surpassed Vishwanathan Anand as the highest rated Indian chess player on the planet. And he is now locked in the top 10 in the world. Now, I'm going to sign off this recap by just saying Vishwanathan Anand was the first grandmaster of India. Since then, they have had something like 70 of them, if not more. And that happened in around 1985, 1986. Vishy Anand has been the highest ranked and basically #1 representative of chess from India for nearly 40 years. He has been the 5-time world champion. He has won countless tournaments. He is a living legend of the game, and even in his 50s, he can clap all of these young bozos. He was surpassed for like a day, unofficially. So at the beginning of every month, there is an official rating list based on all the tournaments you played in the previous month. Somewhere in the middle of a month in 2016, Pantala Harikrishna, in a massive effort, overtook him, but it was for a day. And then he fell back to #2. Gukesh is here to stay. Gukesh is 16, 17 years of age, and he is the future of Indian chess. So is Pragnananda, so is Arjun Erigaisi, so is Raunak Sadhwani, so is Nihal Sarin, so is Karthik Venkataraman, who drew Hikaru, and there's even more than that. The future of chess resides in India. They are printing grandmasters the way the United States was printing money a couple of years ago. I mean, it is really something. Congratulations to Gukesh. Hopefully he has a great Olympiad. The future looks bright. Magnus Carlsen is a buzzsaw. Multiple upsets, including the pride of Singapore, Tin Jingyao, with a massive display. Will Hikaru bounce back from the 2 draws? Will he have a strong showing? That's what we're about to find out. World Cup 2023, coverage will resume, and I am going to go get a juice and then go to sleep. Get the signed copy of the book. Seriously, don't miss out. There's a limited amount, so if you wait, someone's going to get one. Trust me. Good night. Get out of here.